say I am and know that they are. I am, and I know I am. And so they're capable of doing that. Well, the child can do that too. We'll develop to that. Now in the early days that wasn't true all the time. With the Ihans it was. But with the Druks, it was sort of iffy. Now the Ihans, they had a better shot at it. So if we think of it in terms of Ihans, when the Ihans were here, the Ihans, the angels that came, they were pure S, pure spirit, and the Oahspe was pure animal. And so their offspring, between the angels of Sapantes and the Oahspe animal, was an Ihan, was 50-50, half animal and half spirit. So this 50-50 split, we could say, between light and darkness, between corporea and S. That's what the Ihans were. Now, when the Ihan mated with Oahspe, which they weren't supposed to do, but it was a part of the Ihans learning about life and all that, and they did mate with Oahspe occasionally from time to time, but not very much. And only at certain times that were known about beforehand in higher heaven, but not by the angels themselves, or excuse me, not by the Ihans themselves per se. When that happened, it created a Druk. Well, what's a Druk then? Well, if a Druk came from the mating of Ihan and Oahspe, now if Oahspe is 100% darkness or corporea, or the animal, and the Ihan is half, well, that's going to make the offspring of that, of the Oahspe and the Ihan, is going to make them 3/4 darkness or 3/4 beast and only 1/4 spirit. And 1/4 spirit, by and large, that's just right at the limit. And while the Druks themselves, mostly by and large, couldn't perceive that they had this separate entity. They could almost, and actually some of them could. Some of them could tend toward that. Could get very close enough, as a matter of fact, it said in Oahspe, that their offsprings could come forth quickened with eternal life. That they could perceive that they were a separate entity. But as for the Druks themselves, now when they died, lost their physical, because they couldn't differentiate between themselves and what was going on around them, they essentially lost their identity in that which was going around them and just dissipated away and became no more. They essentially faded away as an entity and got absorbed into the larger milieu. But those who are capable of eternal life, capable of perceiving that they were separate from this out there, then they wouldn't dissolve away when they lost their physical body. They would remain intact, a cohesive unit, a focus. And now this focus, though, could dissipate away over time, just depending. And so it wasn't necessarily an immediate dissolution upon death, like it often happens with the Druks. Or it certainly happens with the animal creation out there, that it can just dissipate away, unless of course the angels of Jehovah come and give to it a sense of cohesiveness that allows it to be an entity for a while. And we're told in Oahspe this was because man loved his pets, or the beasts, and so he would have those reproduced for them, or not reproduced, but he would have them still existing in the S realm because they were being held together by this cohesiveness through the labor of the angels of Jehovah. This 33 is very important because 33 essentially the Enqual marks the capacity then to resurrect, the capacity to, first of all, be a cohesive unit, but not just a cohesive unit, but a cohesive unit that's capable of going to the next level, which is the second resurrection. And the second resurrection, while the first resurrection was all about the self, the second resurrection is about the group and about the family, per se, and identification with the group, with the family. And the family acting, or group acting as one, the second resurrection acting as one, and the individuals as being a part of it. And yet, through this process, the individual is never lost. The individual is still there. He's the one of the building blocks of one of the components of the second resurrection, and an integral part of the second resurrection, and yet not above it and not below it, but a part of it. Well, grade 33 represents that attainment. Therefore, it's called the number of man. And now, that's the number of man. Well, then what is 66? We're told that 66 is the number of the beast. Well, 66 is essentially the overt sort of expression of man, of man once he's attained to this capacity. Essentially, the second resurrection is what it means, or the family of man. But we can look at it in terms of what we've already learned about the first row, the first condition, and the second condition from Simoin, and that the first condition is essentially a subjective condition. And so up through grade 133, it's really a subjective condition of man with regard to that which is coming, which is who man truly is. Because man, when he's in the first resurrection, he thinks, well, this is who I am, this is me, and I'm this, this body, and I'm my spirit or whatever. But it's essentially the individual, and that's different from the second resurrection, knowing that you're a group and that you are one as an entity, as a family, as a group. This resurrection, that occurs, that's the objective part of the subjective part. The first 33 were the subjective, the self, and everything. It's all in terms of self. And when you get from 33 to 66, we start to realize that it's more than just self, and it's the group, and learning about the group and everything. And so it's an objective. One gets an objective view of the individual of grade 1 through 33 in the grades from 34 to 66. 66 represents the beast. First of all, it's 2/3 the way to grade 99, which is the top grade. And so the 2/3, we've heard about the 2/3 in Oahspe and elsewhere. Essentially, when we reach that grade level, 66, we're ready then to either transcend the beast, or we're at the threshold of transcending the beast, and that's an option. Are we going to transcend the beast or not transcend the beast? Essentially, grades 67 to 99 represent the third resurrection, and the growth from identification with the family to identification with the community, with groups of families. The cellular unit, we could say, of the third resurrection is actually families. It's not the individual person. Now, the individual person is still there as a part of it, as a part of those groups, but the identification is different.